The Zephyrian Empire had ruled over 847 star systems for more than 3,000 years. Throughout their reign, they had regarded humans as nothing more than an inferior species, tools for labor, expendable resources to be used and discarded. Across the galaxy, millions of humans lived under their oppressive control, denied freedom, property rights, and dignity. Among the countless human outposts scattered throughout Zephyrian territory, Phaeton 9 was perhaps the most isolated. A mining and processing station floating in the empty vacuum between star systems. It housed over 300 humans, assigned to the most grueling maintenance and extraction tasks. The station's cold metal corridors echoed with the constant hum of machinery, punctuated by the occasional shouts of Zephyrian overseers. It was here that Lisa Martinez had spent the last 3 years of her 19-year life, orphaned at a young age. She had fought desperately to prove her worth to the Empire, excelling in her training as a maintenance engineer, despite the constant contempt shown by her Zephyrian supervisors. Her slender frame belied a fierce determination, a quality that had helped her survive in a world that saw her kind as little more than beasts of burden. On this particular day, Lisa was conducting routine repairs on the station's transmission system. The narrow maintenance shaft barely accommodated her small frame as she delicately adjusted the circuitry of a communications relay. Her nimble fingers worked methodically, repairing burned-out resistors and recalibrating signal amplifiers. The air smelled of scorched electronics and recycled oxygen, a familiar combination that she had long since learned to ignore. As she replaced the final component, a burst of static suddenly erupted from the relay. Lisa jumped, nearly hitting her head on the low ceiling. The static gave way to voices, Zephyrian voices, speaking in their harsh, clicking language. Her translator implant automatically began processing the sounds. Instinctively, she knew she should report the malfunction immediately, but something in the urgent tone of the voices made her hesitate. "Project Cleansing Wave must begin with the outer systems," came the translated voice. "The infrastructure failures must appear natural. Life support degradation on Kepler stations, water purification collapse on Green 7, selective reactor meltdowns on the mining colonies." Another voice responded, "Supreme Chancellor Morden has approved the timetable. 17 systems, 4 million humans eliminated over 2 weeks. The resource reallocation will strengthen our core worlds considerably." Lisa's hand froze above the circuit board. Her heart pounded against her ribs. This wasn't merely a malfunction. She had inadvertently accessed a secure channel, one she was never meant to hear. And what she was hearing wasn't just classified information. It was a death sentence for millions. "The beauty of the plan," continued the first voice, "is that the humans will never suspect a coordinated effort. Each failure will appear isolated. A technical accident here, a disease outbreak there. By the time patterns emerge, the cleansing will be complete." The voices continued discussing logistics, but Lisa had heard enough. A sickening realization washed over her. She faced an impossible choice. Protocol demanded she report the transmission error immediately. Failure to do so would be considered sabotage, punishable by death. Yet reporting it would alert the Zephyrians that their secret had been compromised, potentially accelerating their genocidal plan. For several minutes, Lisa remained frozen in place, her mind racing. The Empire had always treated humans poorly, but genocide? This went beyond oppression into something far more sinister. The thought of millions dying in manufactured accidents made her stomach churn. With trembling hands, she reached into her tool belt and withdrew a small recording device, a contraband item she had assembled from scavenged parts. Such unauthorized technology would earn her severe punishment if discovered, but she had kept it hidden for emergencies. If this didn't qualify as an emergency, nothing did. Lisa activated the device, capturing the ongoing transmission. The Zephyrian officers were now detailing timetables and specific methods for each targeted system. When they finally signed off, She carefully disconnected the recorder and completed her assigned repair work, forcing her hands to remain steady despite her internal turmoil. That night, locked in her tiny personal quarters, Lisa transferred the recording to her hidden data terminal. The room was barely large enough for her narrow bed and a small desk, but it offered the one thing she desperately needed now: privacy. Using decryption algorithms she had secretly learned, she began translating and transcribing the entire conversation. Hour after hour, she worked meticulously, cataloging every detail of Project Cleansing Wave, the targeted locations, the methods, the timeline. The more she uncovered, the more horrified she became. This wasn't just about resource reallocation. The Zephyrians saw humans as a growing threat, one they wished to contain before it could challenge their dominance. By morning, exhausted but determined, Lisa had compiled a comprehensive summary of the plan. Now came the most dangerous part: sending this information to someone who could use it. But who? The official communication channels were heavily monitored. Any transmission would be intercepted within seconds. She thought of the rumors, whispers among the human workers about resistance groups operating in the shadows, fighting against Zephyrian rule. Most believed these were merely comforting myths, tales told to maintain hope in hopeless circumstances. But if they existed, they represented humanity's only chance. Using encrypted communication protocols she had secretly developed, Lisa prepared a data package containing both the original recording and her detailed summary. She coded it to fragment and travel through 7 different relay points, a technique that might allow it to evade detection long enough to reach its destinations. With a silent prayer to whatever forces might be listening, she sent the package to 7 different coordinates, scattered across the galaxy, locations where resistance cells were rumored to operate. She had no way of knowing if any would receive her message, or if they even existed, but she had to try. After transmission, Lisa immediately began erasing all evidence of her actions. She wiped files, disposed of the physical recording chip, and reset her equipment to factory settings. But a nagging fear remained. Zephyrian technology was incredibly advanced. They could recover data thought permanently deleted, reconstruct communications thought untraceable. Her attempts at covering her tracks might not be enough. For 2 days, Lisa continued her normal duties, fighting to maintain a facade of routine while anxiety gnawed at her insides. Each announcement over the station's intercom made her flinch. Each passing Zephyrian guard caused her heart to race. Yet somehow, she managed to keep working, keep breathing, keep hoping that her message had reached someone who could act on it. On the 3rd day, her fragile peace shattered. Lisa was in the engine control room, calibrating a coolant flow regulator, when the doors hissed open. 6 Zephyrian soldiers marched in, weapons drawn, led by Captain Vex Korlath, the station's head of security. His yellow, unblinking eyes fixed on her with predatory intensity. "Lisa Martinez," he announced, his voice translator rendering his clicks and hisses into flat, emotionless standard. "You are under arrest for espionage, theft of classified information, and conspiracy with terrorist elements." For a brief, wild moment, Lisa considered claiming innocence, blaming the transmission on equipment malfunction, expressing confusion at the accusations. But the cold certainty in Vex's reptilian gaze told her it would be futile. They had evidence. They knew. The soldiers surrounded her, one of them securing energy restraints around her wrists. The glowing bands burned painfully against her skin whenever she moved, ensuring compliance through the threat of increasing agony. "I was just doing my job," Lisa said, her voice remarkably steady despite her terror. "The transmission came through while I was repairing a circuit board. It was a system error." Vex's lipless mouth curved in what might have been a smile on a human face, but on his scaled visage appeared only as a predatory grimace. "An interesting defense. Yet our tracking systems recorded an unauthorized data package leaving the station 2 days ago. The signal originated from your quarters, during your rest period. The soldiers began marching her toward the exit. Fellow human workers watched in stunned silence as she passed, their faces masks of fear and resignation. No one would speak up for her. No one could. "Where are you taking me?" Lisa asked, though she already suspected the answer. "To Central Command for interrogation," Vex replied. "Supreme Chancellor Morden is particularly interested in learning who helped you and where you sent the stolen information." The journey to Central Command was a blur of shuttle transfers and cold, sterile corridors. Throughout it all, the energy restraints kept Lisa compliant, their burning sensation intensifying whenever she moved too quickly or resisted in any way. By the time they reached the interrogation chamber, her wrists were raw and blistered. The room contained no windows, only blank metal walls and a single chair bolted to the floor. Lisa was secured to this chair, the restraints reconfigured to bind her arms and legs. Vex dismissed the other soldiers, leaving only himself and another officer, a high-ranking female Zephyrian whose insignia marked her as a member of Imperial intelligence. "I am Interrogator Zella," the female announced without preamble. "You will answer our questions truthfully and completely. Resistance will only increase your suffering." What followed was hours of relentless questioning. Who had helped her access the secure channel? How had she obtained recording equipment? To whom had she sent the information? Was she a member of a resistance cell? Through it all, Lisa maintained that she had acted alone, insisting she had merely sent the information to free media networks, rather than terrorist organizations. It wasn't entirely a lie. She truly had no idea who, if anyone, had received her transmission. As the interrogation progressed, Vex grew increasingly frustrated with her limited responses. Physical pain gave way to psychological tactics, threats against other humans on Phaeton 9, promises of leniency if she cooperated, vivid descriptions of what happened to traitors. Still, Lisa revealed nothing beyond what they already knew. There was nothing more to reveal. No conspirators, no organized resistance connection, no master plan. Just one desperate act by one desperate person who couldn't stand by while millions were murdered. After what seemed like days but might have been only hours, Zella received a communication on her personal device. Her expression remained unchanged as she listened, but when she turned to Vex, her voice carried new authority. "The Supreme Council has ruled. The human Lisa Martinez is to be publicly executed for her crimes against the Empire. The execution will take place in 3 standard days at the Grand Coliseum on Zephyr Prime. It will be broadcast throughout all Imperial territories as a deterrent to others." Vex seemed surprised. "A public execution? For a maintenance worker? Isn't that excessive?" Zella's cold eyes narrowed. "The Supreme Chancellor believes this human's actions represent a dangerous trend of insubordination. Her death will serve as a powerful message to others of her kind who might harbor similar rebellious thoughts." Lisa felt a strange calm descend over her. Death had been the expected outcome from the moment she decided to record that transmission. At least now, the waiting would end. The 3 days before her execution passed in a haze of isolation and preparation. She was transferred to a holding cell within the Grand Coliseum on Zephyr Prime, the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. Here, in a small, sterile room deep within the massive structure, Lisa was given a white robe to wear and limited movement within her cell. Guards brought food and water, but never spoke. The energy restraints remained, though adjusted to allow basic movement without pain, unless she approached the cell's boundaries. In this strange limbo, Lisa found herself rehearsing what she would say when given her final opportunity to speak. If she was going to die, she would make her death mean something. On the appointed day, Lisa was led through a series of underground passages toward the execution platform. The corridors grew brighter as they approached the arena, until finally, they reached a massive gate. Beyond it, Lisa could see blinding light and hear the murmur of countless voices. Supreme Chancellor. The Morden himself stood before the assembled crowd, his imposing figure draped in ceremonial robes of office. His scaled skin gleamed iridescent blue-green under the arena lights, and the crest atop his head, a sign of his elite bloodline, stood fully extended in a display of authority. 2 million beings filled the Grand Colosseum, mostly Zephyrians, but with representatives from various subjugated species occupying designated sections. The floor of the arena was covered with brilliant white sand that reflected the harsh sunlight, creating an almost ethereal glow around the execution platform at its center. At precisely 2:27 GST, Galactic Standard Time, Lisa was escorted onto this platform. The energy restraints limited her movement, but allowed her to walk with dignity. Her white robe contrasted sharply with the bright sand, making her small human figure stand out starkly against the massive backdrop of the arena. Chancellor Morden's voice boomed across the Colosseum, amplified by hidden technology. Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire, we gather today to witness justice. Before you stands Lisa Martinez, a human maintenance worker who betrayed the Empire's trust by stealing classified information, attempting to distribute it to terrorist elements, and threatening the security of our civilization. The crowd remained eerily silent as he continued. For these crimes of espionage, theft, and conspiracy, there can be only one sentence: death. Let her fate serve as warning to all who would challenge imperial authority. Morden turned his unblinking yellow eyes toward Lisa. Human, do you have any final words before sentence is carried out? This was the moment Lisa had prepared for. Drawing a deep breath, she looked directly into the hovering camera drones that would broadcast her image throughout the galaxy. A small smile touched her lips as she began to speak. My name is Lisa Martinez. I stand before you not just as an individual condemned to die, but as a representative of humanity itself. We are not merely subjects to be ruled over. We are not resources to be exploited and discarded. We are an intelligent, resilient species that will never surrender its dignity. Her voice grew stronger, echoing across the silent arena. When I die today, remember that humanity will endure. We have always survived, always risen again. Throughout our history, we have faced extinction many times, yet we persist. This moment is no different. Lisa's eyes locked with Morden's, defiance radiating from her small frame. You may control our bodies, but you will never control our spirit. The truth I discovered will spread, and your empire will face the consequences of its actions. As she finished speaking, the time display visible throughout the arena showed 2:33 GST. Morden made a dismissive gesture, and the execution mechanism activated. An energy blade descended toward Lisa's neck, its brilliant blue light reflecting in her resolute eyes. The broadcast captured her final moment in excruciating detail: the blade's contact, the flash of light, and then stillness. Throughout the galaxy, billions watched as the young human's life was extinguished. The time was precisely 2:33 GST. And then something unprecedented occurred. At 2:34 GST, just 1 minute after Lisa's execution, a strange phenomenon began spreading across all Zephyrian territories. In mines, factories, farms, and transport hubs throughout 800 worlds, every human simultaneously stopped whatever they were doing. Tools clattered to the ground. Machines went unattended. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The Zephyrian overseers noticed first the sudden absence of sound where there should have been drilling, packaging, harvesting. They shouted commands, threatened punishment, but received no response. Every human stood motionless, eyes open but unseeing, as if in a collective trance. On Alpha 7, a mining colony in the Kepler system, Supervisor Krell Zandor frantically reported to his superiors, "Something is wrong with the humans. All of them, simultaneously. They've just stopped functioning." Similar reports flooded in from every corner of the Empire. For 7 full minutes. From 2:34 to 2:41 GST. Humans throughout the galaxy remained in this strange suspended state. Medical scans showed they were alive and conscious, yet completely unresponsive to external stimuli. What the Zephyrians couldn't detect was what was happening inside the collective human consciousness. In this shared trance state, ancestral memories were awakening, genetic knowledge passed down through generations, but long dormant. Images of Earth in its glory days. Technological prowess beyond what the Zephyrians permitted. Historical battles for independence. Ancient treaties and resistances. All flooding into the minds of every human simultaneously. When the trance ended at precisely 2:41 GST, humans across the galaxy blinked awake with new purpose and ancient knowledge reborn. They knew exactly what to do. On Alpha 7, Jake Morrison, Lisa's cousin and a mining equipment maintenance specialist, immediately began modifying the electrical circuits around him. Though his job had never involved complex electronics, he suddenly understood exactly how to bypass security systems, disable communication relays, and deactivate sensor arrays. Power fluctuation in Section 12, a Zephyrian technician reported. But by then, it was too late. Throughout the mining facility, humans were executing precisely coordinated actions to seize control of critical systems. Similar scenarios unfolded across the Empire. On Titan 9, Amy Williams, once Lisa's closest friend, accessed the robot maintenance terminals where she worked. Though she had never been trained in programming, she now possessed the knowledge to upload hidden commands into the facility's automated workforce. One by one, production robots ceased manufacturing consumer goods and began fabricating weapons components instead. On Zephyr Prime itself, just kilometers from where Lisa had been executed, Dr. Alex Harper, a human geneticist with partial Zephyrian ancestry, accessed military databases with unprecedented ease. Though his position granted him limited clearance, he now somehow knew how to bypass security protocols that should have been impenetrable. Within minutes, he had copied strategic data and transmitted it to hidden human resistance coordinates. Meanwhile, aboard the Zephyrian battlecruiser Dominator, engineering technician Pete Williams discreetly sabotaged key systems, ensuring the massive warship would be unable to launch when called upon. Similar acts of sabotage occurred simultaneously throughout the Imperial fleet, small, undetectable modifications that would only become apparent when the ships attempted to engage. By 2:47 GST, just 14 minutes after Lisa's execution, the first phase of the human response was complete. Communication systems throughout the Empire experienced unexplainable failures. Security sensors reported false alarms or no data at all. Production facilities began manufacturing unauthorized items or simply shut down entirely. Zephyrian officials scrambled to understand what was happening, but their efforts were hampered by the sudden appearance of a mysterious computer virus named Binary Plus. This sophisticated code, seemingly impossible for humans to have created, infiltrated military and civilian networks alike, causing critical systems to malfunction or report false information. At precisely 3:00 GST, 27 minutes after Lisa's execution, the second phase began. From the depths of the Void Nebula, a region of space long thought uninhabitable, a fleet of 300 human warships emerged from what appeared to be a parallel dimension. These vessels, unlike anything seen in Zephyrian territory, moved with incredible speed and precision, forming strategic positions around key Imperial command centers. The ships bore design elements that seemed both ancient and futuristic, hulls composed of earthforge alloy, a material thought lost to history, fusion thrust engines that left no energy signature, and pulse laser weapons that, while technologically simple by Imperial standards, proved devastatingly effective. On the bridge of the flagship Terra, Commander Helen Brooks watched as her fleet deployed. Once an officer in the Imperial Auxiliary Forces, Helen had lost her family to Zephyrian population control measures decades earlier. Now, she commanded humanity's greatest military asset, a fleet constructed in secret over generations. "All ships report ready, Commander," her tactical officer announced. "Imperial defenses remain unresponsive due to the Binary Plus virus. They have no idea we're here." Helen nodded grimly. "Proceed to Phase 3. Transmit the ultimatum to Chancellor Morden's private channel only. Let's see how he responds when he realizes what's happening." At 3:02 GST, Imperial defenses around Zephyr Prime detected the approaching human vessels. But by then, it was too late. 12 warships had already positioned themselves around the planet, neutralizing defense systems and jamming radar installations without firing a single shot. Simultaneously, across hundreds of worlds. The third phase of the human response unfolded. On agricultural planet Green 7, human farmers seized control of irrigation systems, food storage facilities, and distribution networks. The Zephyrian overseers found themselves locked out of automated systems by new security codes they couldn't override. On Industrial World Metal 4, production lines previously manufacturing consumer goods were rapidly converted to produce ammunition, armor, and other military supplies for the resistance. Factory supervisors watched helplessly as humans they had treated as mindless laborers demonstrated advanced technical knowledge that should have been impossible. Transport Hub Beta Station became a focal point for coordinated action as human pilots took control of cargo ships, establishing blockades of key Zephyrian trade routes. The pilots, once considered too intellectually limited for anything beyond basic flight patterns, now executed complex maneuvers that confused and outmatched Imperial interceptors. In his private chambers on Zephyr Prime, Supreme Chancellor, Morden attempted to assess the rapidly deteriorating situation. His communication screens showed only static as he tried to contact regional governors and military commanders. The single private channel still functioning delivered increasingly dire reports from those few officials he could reach. "Supreme Chancellor," the visibly shaken Governor von Hati, Green reported, "all battleships have lost combat capability. Humans have somehow gained control of our logistics, production, and weapon systems. I don't understand how this is possible." Morden's ancestral crest flattened against his skull, a sign of extreme stress among his species. "How could they coordinate this? Where did these warships come from? Our intelligence indicated no such resistance capability existed." As if in answer to his questions, his final functioning communication screen flickered to life, showing the stern face of Commander Grace Turner aboard the human flagship Terra. "Supreme Chancellor Morden," she began without preamble, "the Zephyrian Empire has destroyed itself by burning the heart of humanity. As of this moment, the human species is free." Morden's yellow eyes narrowed. "What madness is this? Who are you to make such declarations?" "I am the voice of Earth," Turner replied calmly. "The voice of the homeworld you tried to make us forget. The knowledge you thought lost has returned to us. The moment Lisa Martinez died, her sacrifice awakened our collective memory, technology, strategy, and determination passed down through generations." A chorus of voices joined Turner's, broadcasting simultaneously from every human ship. "You have 1 hour to sign an order withdrawing all Zephyrian forces from human colonies, freeing all human beings, and dissolving the Empire's control structure. Failure to comply will initiate Phase 4 of our response." Morden's scaled hands trembled with rage. "The Empire does not bow to inferior intellects. We built this galaxy. We are its rightful rulers. It was you who made us appear weak in your eyes." Turner responded evenly. "We have been preparing for centuries for this day. Don't force us to demonstrate Phase 4. As reports continued flooding in of system after system falling under human control, Morden faced the unthinkable reality of defeat. The empire that had stood for 3 millennia was collapsing around him in less than an hour. At precisely 4 GST, exactly 87 minutes after Lisa Martinez's execution. Morden signed the formal document dissolving the Zapparian Empire's authority over human territories and recognizing human independence. The document was transmitted throughout the galaxy, triggering celebrations among millions of suddenly liberated humans. In the aftermath, the Resistance Network revealed itself fully. For generations, humans had maintained a secret society dedicated to preserving Earth's knowledge and preparing for eventual liberation. Children with specific genetic markers, those capable of accessing ancestral memory, had been identified and subtly trained. Weapons and ships had been constructed in hidden facilities beyond Imperial detection. The execution of Lisa Martinez had triggered a pre-programmed genetic response, activating dormant neural pathways in human minds that contained the accumulated knowledge and skills of their ancestors. What the Zapparians had witnessed wasn't magic or impossibility, but the culmination of centuries of preparation, waiting for the perfect catalyst to activate. In the months that followed, human society rebuilt itself. Democratic elections were held, educational systems restored, and cultural identities reclaimed. The search for Earth, the ancestral homeworld many now remembered only through genetic memory, became a priority for the newly formed human alliance. Other non-Zapparian species, long subjugated by the Empire, formed alliances with humanity, creating a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than domination. 1 year after the Day of Liberation, a bronze statue of Lisa Martinez was unveiled in the central square of what had once been the imperial capital. The inscription at its base read simply, "One sacrifice awakened millions. Never again will we forget who we are." The statue depicted her not in her final moments of execution, but standing tall and proud, a symbol of the indomitable human spirit that had endured centuries of oppression only to rise again, stronger than ever. On distant Phaeton 9, now a thriving human settlement, rather than a labor camp, Jake Morrison stood at a viewport, gazing at the stars. His cousin Lisa had never known the full extent of the Resistance Network, never realized she was part of a plan generations in the making. Her action, born purely of moral courage, rather than strategic calculation, had provided the perfect spark to ignite humanity's liberation. "We remember," he whispered to the stars, repeating the phrase that had become humanity's new motto. "We endure. We rise again." Somewhere in the vast galaxy, the genetic memory of Lisa Martinez lived on in countless humans who would never forget her sacrifice or the 33 minutes that changed everything.